Good morning, BBR fans. It is your boy, the host of the most for your BBR content analyst breakdown specialist. It is your boy Thriller here, and we are here for week number 6 pick'ems of the BBR. Now, I actually am going to let you guys know a couple things. First off, I've written down my predictions for this match, for these matches, and surprisingly enough, all the week 6 games were played. So this is definitely a first. But I wanted you guys to know that I'm going to break down these matches like I act like they are just normal. I know the results, and before everyone asks, no, I didn't cheat in my pick'ems. I already had my people written down who I picked. But guess what? I won't spoil what happens there. I only will spoil that all the games were played at the time of recording. Um, Even when I tried to record this originally, actually about half of the games were played already. So, but I didn't notice it. I noticed that on the standings, and I quickly looked away and did my predictions for the teams before I looked at the schedule slash standings where I saw the wins and losses. So I went to this. I still written down my answers when I was blind and did know the results, but just know I do know the results and I do know that all the games were played. But we're gonna still break this down for you guys to take your guesses on who won this week and who lost this week. And we're still talking about why exactly I picked these coaches to win this week and kind of go over the matchup itself. So, with that being said, if you guys are excited, if you haven't already, subscribe if you are new. Join the crew today because you'll be throwing the king of the crew. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I am ready to talk about this matchup here. We have got some pretty cool matchups here. We have a really cool game of the week as well. And overall, it's just going to be a super great time. So, with that being said, let's talk about the game one here, which is going to be James and the Ark in Jamestown's judgment here. Still, unfortunately, without a win this season, but hopefully Ark can bounce back. But he's got a very tough opponent. But before we talk about his opponent, though, let's break down Ark's team real quick. He's got Greninja, Walking Wake, Corviknight, Moltres, Cleavor, Hisuian Gujar, Terrakion, Gardevoir, and Wheezy. And why I say it's unfortunate for him is he is taking on the man of many sets, the man with the most terrifying brain in Pokemon. It is a male with the Montreal Ice Schools, with in his team consists of Darkrai, Petron, Quaquaval, Clefable, Latios, Ogerpon, Quarterstone, Hippowdon, Regieleki, and Vivillon. Now, Ark has never taken on Amel, so he should definitely be going into this matchup with no knowledge of how Amel is going to prep. Amel literally will prep the most unorthodox stuff you'll ever seen in your life, and he'll make it work because he's just that good at the game. Abel is so unpredictable that you both feel like when you face Amel, you get excited to face Amel, but you also get scared to face Amel because you don't know what the hell he's going to bring to the matchup. So, looking for this team, I'm looking at Petra here, and besides potentially the Greninja, most of everything loses to Petra. Like, obviously, there's things like Gardevoir as well, but Petra can actually pressure the Gardevoir. In fact, it's gonna kind of force the Gardevoir to be scarfed in this matchup slightly because I remember, I think I have seen Amel run a timid set before. If not, I know Joey, aka Pokemon D, has done that before. And I think Arc has to respect the speed tier that Petron does have. So that's gonna be something to note about there. But just overall, I just think Dark Petron is gonna be really annoying. Quabbel hits really hard in this matchup. I think Clefable also really puts on a clinic in terms of like a store power set, which I think is really important to know. Darkrai is also very good. Ooh. Ogerpon looks insanely strong in this matchup. There is not very much that wants to take a hit from here. Latias, a really good kind of speedy slash good support Pokemon. Regieleki, funny enough, is coming this matchup. Now, I don't know if Amo will go physical, special, or mix. All I know is that Ark's gonna get thumbnailed by a Regieleki. Excuse me. Because we'll talk about that reason once we get back to Ark's team. Even Vivillon looks decently good in this matchup, but I don't think anyone's going to bring it. I think Amel's best six Pokemon are gonna probably be the Darkrai, the Ogerpon, the Regieleki. Maybe he brings a Powdon for a defensive check, but I don't really know. Latios looks really great. Clefable's nice. Even Petron is really good here as well. So I think a lot of great things on Amel's team here that Arc has to deal with. So, looking at Arc's team back again. Now, you may ask yourself, why is Regieleki a problem? Look at Arc's team. Where is his ground type? He only has a one switch into this Pokemon, and that is Hisuian Guja. And that's it. And Arc is going to be forced to bring it, which means Abel can prep for that Guja. And Guja, again, doesn't have a terrible matchup into Emil. But if anything, it's forced to be AB, it's forced to be Spadev. It's just forced to have to be in this role to check Regieleki. And once this thing gets weakened down, we'll put a point where Regieleki can two-shot it from the range it'll be at. Regieleki kind of just has a free day. Like, Specs Regieleki just goes insane in this matchup. I could see it going timid or modest in this matchup. Just be able to click Thunderbolt for free. But more importantly, Volt Switch for free is really great momentum. But let's not count Arc out completely. Arc has some good Pokemon here. I think Greninja does insanely well in this matchup. I do think you really are pressured on what kind of build you want to go with. You either go mix, you go special, you go physical. There's a lot of ways you can run your Grin this week. Being able to potentially try to check things like the Fable, the Latias, the Pecharai, the Darkrai, the Quaquaval, excuse me, to the extreme. Um, I definitely think Protean is the best ability to go in this matchup. I don't think you ever go Battle Bond because I just don't think Battle Bond fits in a lot of ways. I think having that Protean be able to change your type at least kind of gives you a bit of a beneficial factor into this matchup. So, Walking Wake, not a bad Pokemon in this matchup. It does insanely really well. It just really needs that speed buff and really hoping that the Latios is not Choice Scarf. But if the Latios is not Choice Scarf, Walking Wake can actually do a ton of damage in this matchup with a booster speed set. It can really do a lot of work and can really punish a lot of Abel's team. Ooh, excuse me. If Abel is not careful. Corviknight once again looks absolutely fantastic. A power trip set really goes in on this team. Something like potentially Iron Defense, Roost, Bulk Up, or Iron Defense, Agility, something like that, or Agility Bulk Up, one of the two. I think all you realistically need is Power Trip. Power Trip really is all you really need in this matchup. Obviously, if Fable is a thing, so do need to kind of keep note of that. Moltres, don't realistically think it comes. Not really that good of a mon. Cleavor actually does relatively well in this matchup. There's very little that can kind of switch into Cleavor. The only main switches to Cleavor are going to be the Quackable and the Hippowdon. Excuse me. Other than that, Cleavor does really good. Again, like I said, you're forced to bring his Studian Guzra to this matchup. Terrakion could definitely punch some holes for Abel's team. Like I think like a beta Terrakion set kind of does really work, but you might be forced into Scarf. But that's where I think the Scarf Gardevoir comes into play. Either go Scarf Gardevoir or Specs with it because Specs with Vacuum Wave is good chip damage to pick off stuff. And Specs also could just hit insanely hard in this matchup. We'll have Terrakion to potentially be cleanup. Wheezing, don't really know if you bring it, but you might be forced to bring it because Amel can and you can bring, I think Wheezing actually has sight, if I remember correctly. So I mean Wheezing for the thumbnail. But overall, I think Wheezing is a decent defensive check to a lot of things on Abel's team. But don't really know. But based off this matchup, though, I am definitely going to pick Amel for this one. Just because Amel's team just looks really good into Arc. I think Arc's gonna really struggle with some of the other Pokemon on Amel's side. But Arc does have some tools to win this match. He just has to very, very, very much try to keep everything in check and try to keep everything in space for what he can do. Real quick, before I go and talk about the second matchup, the main reason why this is a second time recording of this video is I accidentally showed off my teams, and some of those teams I would have actually have already deleted, but some of those teams I would not have deleted because I don't play until Sunday at the very latest. So I didn't want to really spoil my team out there and potentially have people counter team me, I don't think they would really stoop that low to do that. But that's the main reason why it's now a second recording, and that's why now everything's there. Anyways, back to Pokemon. We have our second game here going to be Pokebaldi taking on Kurt. Kurt's team of the Wheel of Blue. Last place is Gouging Fire, Iron Shreds, Rillaboom, Azelf, Primarina, Alolan Mug, Urshifu Rapid Strike, Electrode, and Slowbro. Where Baldy's team is consistent of the Garchomp, the Galarian Slowking, the Enamorus, the Heatran, Kilowattrel, King Gambit, Manaphy, Toadscruel, and Ice Cube. He is never bringing Ice Cube unless he's out of playoffs and he wants to bring a meme set. Let's be honest about that. Looking at Baldy's team and Kurt, I do think it's going to be a bit of a rough matchup for Baldy. Just because Rillaboom is a big factor here, but Rillaboom kind of gives advantage to Baldy as well for the Heatran, which I think is really important to know about that as well. But looking at whether his Garchomp could just really do well offensively in this matchup, Dragon Spam is pretty free into most of Kurt's team. Um, and Kurt can't really do too much to stop it. Unfortunately, Garchomp is going to be forced to be run Stomping Tantrum with high horsepower. I don't know if he gets high horsepower. I think he gets Stomping Tantrum. But Garchomp could also be forced to run Mix and be Fire Blast to hit on the special side for both that and um, that and Rillaboom, but I could see Poison Jab for the Rillaboom since it's Poison Jab for the Prim. I believe he gets Poison Jab. I don't really know. How my hat. Excuse me. I don't know why I have yards so much. I don't know. But Garchomp looks pretty decent in this matchup. Galarian Slowking is a weird mixed bag in this one. Like, it's kind of good in this matchup, but it's kind of bad in this matchup at the same time. Don't realistically know what kind of set you want to go with. I don't even want to try to go for Trick Room. I don't even want to try to go for Momentum with Chili Reception, for Blizzard Spam with things like Manaphy and stuff. I don't really know. Enamorus, really strong Pokemon in this matchup. I do think you are going to have to be forced to be Scarf Enamorus, and then if anything, that's going to force Kurt to run Booster Speed Shreds in that case. And if you can get that information, that's really good. And if you feel like you don't really want to scarf this matchup, you can just go Timid Specs this matchup because Fairy Spam is looking strong into Kurt's team. Heatran, don't realistically think you bring that. There's way too many checks to Heatran on this draft, and I don't think it's going to be broad. Kilowattrel definitely has a possibility. Hurricane Spam looks really free in the majority of the teams. I could see the Chili Reception from the Low King, so that way you could have Weather Ball Ice, so you can have a neutral hit into the Great Tusk, into the Iron Treads. King Gambit looks pretty strong in this matchup as well, but I don't fully expect it to be brought just because it kind of roughs in with all the fighting coverage and stuff, and plus it just takes one Drain Punch from Azal and puts it in range of everything else for Mons to be put into range. So just overall, I think King Gambit is really fit here. Manaphy is perfect for this matchup. I think the only big threat Manaphy is going to have to be dealing with is primarily going to have to be that not the Rillaboom. Other than that, defensively, I think Manaphy checks just about everything on your team. Offensively, it just really punishes so many things out there. So I think Manaphy's really great. Toadscruel, don't realistically think you bring it, but it's not terrible. I think there's just way too easy counterplay towards it. So definitely think Baldy has got a very rough matchup here going into Kurt's team. And we're kind of talk about it now because when you look at Baldy's team, and I keep saying this, I'll be on repeat with it. Every week is a gouging fire game. Just the combination of Fire Dragon is so broken. It has no safe resistances. And Kirk can always run it anyway well. Personally speaking, for this matchup, I do think you are forced into maybe almost a Shuckleberry or a Bombberry bring, though, with Dragon Dance and stuff like that. Or go Sub Morning Sun, do a stab, just so you can take the Earth Power and then try to knock out the Enamorus with a Fire type move. Just overall, very good, strong Pokemon. Iron Treads also looks fantastic this matchup. I think a booster speed with your Iron Defense, Body Press, Earthquake, and Iron Head does really well, or something like booster speed for attacks, and just go from there. It's just overall a super strong Pokemon in this matchup and can do a lot of work. Rillaboom, like I said, is a little bit of a tough bring in this matchup, but I would probably say there's a decent chance you still bring it. Obviously, you cannot hit the Enamorus for anything else, but you pretty much can check just about everything else in the team offensively. and can do a lot of work. Azelf, another strong and super good Pokemon in this matchup. I think Azelf can do quite a lot of work. Primarina, also another fantastic Pokemon. Specs looks super free into the matchup here, as there is very little to switch in. Like if Heatran does not come, pretty much there is, and like there's like a Glow King, you only have one water switch in. You have one fairy switch in, and that switch in can be easily predicted. So I think Prim looks really good here. I don't know if you bring a Lawn Mug. It's kind of a niche mon this matchup. Kind of does decently well into things like the Glow King and the Enamorous, but don't really know if it's going to be brought for anything else. Urshifu Rapid does really good in this matchup. Dual Stab is very much unresisted on the entirety of Baldy's team, and just really kind of struggles with that. Electrode's not a real Pokemon, and Galarian Slowbro actually has a pretty decent matchup as well. I do think you kind of have to be. If you go Trick Room 3 attack, you got to be like Trick Room 3 attacks with Regenerator, something like Dual Stab and Ice Beam, probably, or potentially having to be Flame Force slash Focus Blast if you feel the Team Gambit, or something like that. Overall, I think just Kurt's team absolutely fantastic in this matchup, and that is why I'm going to be picking Kurt for this matchup. So, his team is just matched us up perfectly into Baldy, and Baldy's gonna have a hard time trying to break for this team. Baldy definitely can win, but he has to really get into position for some of his threats to actually be able to do it. But overall, I think just Kurt's team is really good, and I think overall it's gonna pull him in the win there. Up next, we've got Panther versus my main man, my goat Jason. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I helped Jason prep a little bit for this matchup. I gave him like a mock or two with this team. And I think the biggest issue that Jason's gonna have here, and before we talk about that, let's quickly just run down Panther's team. He's got Excadrill, Cinderace, Keldeo, Weezing, Raikou, Salamence, Articuno Galar, Tyranitar, Quagsire, and Appletun. Now, the big reason why I said Jason struggled with this team is that the drill in the sand is a potential option and a big potential threat to most of Jason's team. If drill can get set up, it can just pretty much punch holes through the majority of everything Jason has. But I personally think Sand has a really bad matchup here, as you have Vacuum Wave from some of the Pokemon that Jason has, Aqua Jet Priority, the fact that he's got two water types, the ground type, a really solid fighting type. Like, I just feel like there's not a really good matchup for Excadrill here. Now, looking at some of the Pokemon that can possibly not be brought but do really well in the matchup, things like Salamence. Salamence is a Pokemon that is roughly good here. It's not great, but can do really well. Same with Galarian Articuno, but Galarian Articuno leans more toward being a major brawl because Dual Stab is incredibly unresisted for the majority of Jason's draft and really kind of gets punished quite a lot, and he can definitely be hurt by a lot of things that Jason can do. And overall, I think Galarian Recruit is really great. Quagsire and Appleton, they're not Pokemon, so we're not going to talk about them. Galarian Weezing, fantastic Pokemon this matchup. Defensively checks just so many things, can provide really good support. Offense to T Spikes is definitely going to be there because of the fact that Jason does not has grounded poisons a muck, and his muck does terrible in this matchup. Cinderace, absolutely big threat in this matchup. I think Cinderace can do quite a lot of matches. There's a heavy duty boot set, there's choice band, there's expert belt. I do think Panther is going to be forced to run gunk shot in order to be able to hit the Azumarill for super effective damage. I even think he's going to be forced to run high jump kick to really put in a lot of work against the majority of Jason's team. Keldeo was a Pokemon that I think kind of fits the build. It kind of also doesn't. But there was a couple of options for sets. I think Scar for Specs is going to be the main choice of line of defense for this matchup. I think Specs just because it hits insanely hard into the majority of Jason's team with having that priority in Vacuum Wave. But Scarf's also really good because it can catch off an Iron Bundle off guard, and also having that Scarfer lets you guarantee outspeed things like the Zarude and be able to beat the Zarude once it gets a little bit of chip damage off on it as well. So do you think that Raikou also a Pokemon that I think is pretty much bad, but has a pretty solid enough matchup here? Like a Calm Mindset can just really go to town on Jason if he is not careful. Something like Air Balloon Calm Mind or Air Balloon or like Calm Mind Shuka. Like there's just a lot of ways you can kind of go with this Raikou set. And just really put on a clinic for most of Jason's team. I think Jason's has to force Mon to be adept at his possession switching so he can take two hits from stuff. But overall, excuse me, just had a yawn and then stretched. But just overall, I feel like Panther has got a solid matchup here nonetheless. But let's go ahead and talk about Jason's team here. Because Jason does still have a very good matchup here. I think Jason can definitely do quite a bit for his team in this matchup here. So Jason's team has got Blood Moon Ursa Luna, Iron Bundle, Azumarill, Slitherwing, Tinkaton, Zarude, Noivern. Sorry if you hear my cat in the background. Uxie, Muck, Pikachu, and Misdreavus. Now, the reason why I think Jason can have a really good matchup here is that you just look at his top three. Once again, the top three is super good into majority of the matchups that Jason has, which I think is really important to note. I think Slithering, it's it's kind of tough to bring in my opinion. But Jason brought like a Slithering for the mocks, and it ended up working a bit more better for him in the long run. But I overall just I don't know, man. Slithering's kind of tough to bring in this matchup. Tingaton I think is really good and being a really good soft check to a couple things in the team. Zarude with Scarf is super free into most teams. Knockoff plus close combat plus power whip. Very hard for Panther to really kind of switch in and deal with it. I do think outside of Scarf, I think Choppleberry makes the most sense because it just handle a lot more of the threats that Panther does have. Also checks the potential chance of an Aura Spear from the Raikou as well. Noivern kind of good in this matchup a little bit here. Just because Noivern can be able to kind of just fly spam most of the things, and when he can't fly spam, he just flamethrowers. So that's gonna be really good. And then what else he can't fly spam and hurricane spam, he can just Draco and then have also access to Super Fang to guarantee that 50% chip, which is really good. Plus spamming Frisk is really strong. Uxie just a really good reliable defensive mon every single week, and I think has definitely proved to be Jason's defensive MVP just because it's just super fat and annoying to deal with and just has so many ways you can run it. Muck, Pikachu, Misdreavus, they're never going to come again. They're never doing anything. But based off the matchup here, though, I think I'm going to have to go with my guy, Jason. I think Jason has a really good matchup. His top three literally have the proper priority. And based on some mocks, Jason actually brought a choice Scarf Iron Bundle, which I think actually is a really good solid bring. I feel like you go booster energy, if anything, over Scarf, in my opinion, but I can kind of see why he didn't want to go booster. Just because if he raced his booster, then he's basically going to be slower than the Excadrill. So going Scarf makes the most sense logically then at that point. But overall, though, I do think Jason can pull out the win here, but it's definitely going to be tough for Jason. It definitely will be tough for Jason to pick up the win here. Real quick, guys, I have to pause real quick, but I'll be right back. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, I had to grab my sheet of paper that I written down my names for the people I picked. Because I just brought my computer from the kitchen, the dining room into my bedroom, so that way I can charge my computer. So, breaking the fourth wall. Anyways, let's go ahead and talk about our fourth matchup, and it's going to be my game of the week this week. And it's a pretty exciting matchup because it's the Battle of Owens. The winner of this matchup basically gets to be called Owen for the rest of the BBR season and gets the title of being known as Owen, and the other has to be go by their YouTube name for the rest of their life. So the name is on the line. We got my boys Owen, OG Albina, take of the Golden State Gallades, where he has got Iron Valiant, Chi-Yu, Bilmora, Swampert, Metagross, Talonflame, Decidueye, Orionzi, and Hariyama. Taking on the other homie Owen, aka Obo, with Urshifu, Ironmoth, Landers T, Rotom Jirachi, Cyclizar, Bramblecast, Galvantula, Sneasel, and Florges. Both teams are doing decently well right now. I think Obo is definitely doing a slightly better this time around. He's only had one loss so far this season, which is a really impressive feat for Obo. I know he doesn't really usually do well in leagues a lot, but he is really coming to strive here this season, and I think he's definitely built a pretty decently solid team, even though he has a random Sneasel on there for no reason. But looking at this matchup, the reason why this is my game of the week. This is a matchup that can literally go either way, and has a lot of great, a lot of great potential to make this a very close end game for both sides, and does really well. So let's talk about OG Albina, Owen's team here, because I'm going to refer to him as Owen for right now because I've always been knowing him as Owen based on the fact that everyone talks to him like that, and they'll go like, "Hey, it's hey OG Albina, how you doing?" Or Ogle. I like calling him Owen though. But looking at Owen's team, Iron Valiant shreds. Like You can go mixed, special, physical still, even with the Landers. I think Clear Aim it looks really good in this matchup, as you can just run enough speed for what you need and then just slap on SD and then just start punching people with your staff. Like this thing is super all free in the majority of Obo's team that Owen can just kind of be able to punch through holes. Chiyu, absolutely massive threat in this matchup. I think the only concerning option that Owen's gonna have is maybe could be that Urshifu and might force his Chiyu to be Scarf this matchup, and even the Iron Moth with Meteor Beam potentially. And the Landers and Rotom Wash. But like I said, if Owen runs Scarf, he pretty much mitigates at least all those checks except for a booster speed Iron Moth. So, but again, if it's running power, but then it's not that much of a threat. Excuse me. But overall, I just think Chiyu does insanely well in this matchup. These top two just punch through so much of Obo's draft. Glamora kind of can see it being brought. It doesn't really do a ton of incredibly well in this matchup, but really can punch a lot of holes. I think like a meteor beam set actually can kind of cook. I think rock. I think like either rock polish setup or meteor beam or something like rock polish meteor beam and then sludge wave and energy ball do insanely well in this matchup. But then I think you're kind of relying on your energy and your meteor beam than on Iron Moth slash Landorus. So I do think you could run the rock move in this match. But with also the Jirachi there, it kind of makes it a little bit tough. So don't really know what kind of set this Gamora can be. It could just be a hazard bot set this week, as it can always be, but who knows? Swampert, really good, reliable defensive check to a lot of things on this team. Do you think it's going to be forced to be Rindoberry once again because obviously Ironmoth can just freely click a grass type move. Jirachi can click a grass type move. Gas, Galvantula, they all like to click the grass type moves. So Swampert eventually checks out a lot of things out there, so I think it's really good. Metagross, don't realistically know if it's going to be broad. I think it's kind of pretty much set up fodder for a couple of things. But also, I do think it kind of gets wooden done really easy. Like, I think it's a free burn target to be threatened out on. I think with Iron Moth, it checks it really well, unless it's an agility. Metagross set. Again, also another thing that kind of just doesn't really beat Urshifu, so I don't really think he can afford to bring Metagross. I really don't think he does, unless he brings something like Iron Defense, Body Press, Rest, and then maybe like either the Psychic move or a Steel move. Probably a Psychic move if I had to take a guess. Or Steel move, I can't really tell. I think Psychic would make the most sense for what he wants to hit still. But I could see a set like that popping out for Owen if he plays it correctly. But other than that, I don't really think Metagross comes. Talonflame, another Pokemon I realistically don't think really kind of comes with Scarf, Rock Move from Urshifu, Iron Moth with Meteor Beam, Rock Move from Landorus, Rotom Wash beats it 1v1, Meteor Beam from Jirachi, also Scarf with Rock Move. I just, the Scarf Galvantula, I don't really think Talonflame makes a lot of sense here. Talonflame would be a really good check in things like Fortress, which would be really good and Bramble Gas, but I realistically don't think it's coming. Same with Decidueye, I don't think it comes. Really bad matchup for it. Porygon Z, though, can shred in this matchup. I think Porygon Z with something like a sub lefties offensive set can kind of just really punch through a lot of things. Like, Tri Attack is very much unresisted. The only unresisted hit he has is Jirachi and a Bramble Gas. And he can literally just tack on Shadow Ball slash Dark Pulse for that and then just check it. So we could see something like a nasty plot, sub nasty plot set, and just kind of run rampant like that. Or we could just see like nasty plot and three attacks. Like this Porygon Z can really go through a lot of Pokemon. And Hariyama, once again, my GOAT is really dope in this matchup because it baits in the burns from the Rotom Wash very easily. A fantastic Urshifu check. And also a fantastic answer to things like Landorus. Surprisingly enough, because of Ice Punch. I will say the only thing that's going to struggle for Hariyama is the Jirachi and Florges a little bit. I also think Hariyama is going to be heavily crippled into 4 move slot syndrome, where I think if you feel like the Florges could be a threat, you have to have Heavy Slam. Earthquake, I think you're guaranteed you need to bring in this matchup. You need at least one fighting type move in this matchup, and then there's also the potential of running Ice Punch if you feel the Lander is coming. So I do think the Hariyama is going to struggle with the 4 move slots and potentially with its item, but I overall think Hariyama can do really well. Whereas Obo's team, Urshifu, in my honest opinion, does decent here, but it doesn't do crazy. But Obo could be forced to be running it just because, it's his first pick. And I think if he doesn't bring it, he's like, what's the point of having your first pick on your team if you're not going to bring it? Iron Moth can shred. Iron Moth does so well this matchup. There's like three options you go in this matchup. I think an agility set with Modest makes a lot of sense. I think a boost your speed set makes a ton of sense. And I also could see Meteor Beam in this matchup as well. So a lot of variations for this Iron Moth and can kind of do really well in the matchup here. Landorus is kind of rough to bring in this matchup just because of just how the team is built. But I do think Landorus provides a really good offensive pressure. I honestly would not be surprised to see like a choice specs or a choice span Landorus bring, in my opinion, as it just punishes most of Owen's draft. Scarf would also make a lot of sense as well. Scarf could do a lot of work as well in checking a couple of things. Rotom Wash, I think it's definitely going to be brought. Really good defensive pivot into most of everything on Owen's team, which I think is really great. Jirachi, a little bit hesitant if he brings it or not, but I wouldn't be entirely surprised. This could be definitely his rocker, or it could be something like AV, and then just be able to take on most of everything on the team. It could be Okaberry, it could be Cobra Berry for the Chi-Yu, and to revenge it easily, or to Thunder Wave it. You never know. So I think a potential support Jirachi can definitely make a lot of sense. Cyclizar, it's just not that good of a Pokemon, unfortunately, and I don't think it's going to bring it. Brambleghast, don't realistically think you bring Bramble into this type of a matchup. I mean, it's good into a couple of things, but I don't realistically think it makes a ton of sense. Galvantula definitely could make an appearance because of the fact that Owen would be forced to defog if he wants to try to bring hazard removal. So you might be forced to only bring Mortal Spin on something like Glamora. So he might also be forced to run quite a bit of boots. Like I know that you definitely screaming boots right now based off this matchup. So I think the Evangel could definitely be better. I think like a Sash lead or just kind of Sash in general, or we potentially heavy boots and be a little offensive. Sneasel, don't think that's coming ever. Floor just has like another one of those matchups where it's good, but it kind of struggles a bit. But it's not like a surprise factor that Floor just could be brought. So just overall, though, I do think actually I'm going to vote for Obo to win this matchup. I think Obo has a lot more threats onto his team that Owen does. Like Owen's top two is definitely going to probably be the more toughest of the two that Obo has to handle. But I think overall Obo's team's energy kind of just really kind of overwhelms Owen's. So gotta go with Obo in this one. But we will decide. They will decide on the battlefield who gets to be called Owen, who gets to be called OG Albino or Obo for the rest of the season, slash until the next season of the BBR starts. So a lot on the line for these two. Up next, though, we have got Leo, aka 6 Foot Hacks, and the Carolina Hacksters, with Terrapagos, Rory Moon, Ogerpon Wellspring, Hattering, Cobalion, Alomola, Clodsire, Thunderous Therian, Sinistra, and Magneton, taking on Keegan's team, which is down here, with Miascarada, Iron Hands, Volcarona, Screamtail, Landorus, Blastoise, Dragonite, Registeel, and Bruxers. Looking at on the matchup here, Keegan kind of has a couple of good threats into Leo's team here. I think obviously the Miascarada looks really strong in this matchup. I think Iron Hands is really threatening into this matchup. Landorus is always going to be a scary threat. Screamtail, fantastic defensive check to a lot of things on Leo's team, which I think is really great. Blastoise, I feel like you might be forced to bring in this matchup as a defensive water in this one versus being an offensive water, which you could decently do well in. Volcarona, don't really know if you bring it, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it brought. Interested to see how he would go though. I don't think you bring Registeel though. Registeel's a little passive in this matchup, unless you go with something like a mixed defensive or like a Spadef and Iron Defense Reggie with that body press. Um, but I don't know. It's gonna be really interesting. Breakfast is not coming. Breakfast will never come again. It came that one time because he felt bad for it. Dragonite's definitely not coming. With having things like Scale Shot from Rory Moon, and easily breaking that multi-scale. Yeah, I think it's just way too easy. And then with having Terrapagos there, I don't think Dragonite's really that good in this matchup. Whew, my yawn. So, but looking at Leo's team though, Terrapagos is super free because the only normal resist that Keegan has is a Registeel, and that just takes one Earth Power switch in to just clear that out. So I could definitely see something like Specs Terapicos doing work. Rory Moon does absolutely great in this matchup. Do you think Rory Moon might be forced to not be brought though, just because of the fact of that things like Miasgrado, Play Rough, Iron Hands, Volcarona, Screamtail do a lot better at checking it, so may not even be brought this matchup. Who knows? Ogerpon Wellspring, absolutely banger of a Pokemon this matchup. I think the only issue it's going to have to really deal with is Reggie Steele's there, tries to set up the iron defenses. But overall, Ogerpon does really well in this matchup. Clodsire, a really good defensive check and a lot of really good Konomon. It kind of pretty much beats the Screamtail 1v1 in my opinion, unless it's a slightly offensive Screamtail. Can handle the Iron Hands, can handle the Meowscarada. Landorus checks it pretty well. Sinistcha, again, another fantastic Pokemon in this matchup. The only threat it's going to have realistically is going to be the Meowscarada. And if Sinistcha learns Will-O-Wisp, which I believe it does. No, it does not, actually. It does not. I don't remember. But besides Meowscarada, Sinistcha just cooks throughout the majority of this team, which I think is really funny. Cobalion does insanely well into this matchup as well. I think Cobalion just has to worry about the potential Scarf from Landorus, but can really do. Alamo is just a fat fish, but I don't really know if it's gonna be brought. It could definitely be brought though. Kind of good, do decently enough defensively. Check a couple of things, but with Meowscarada Iron Hands, it makes it a little tough to bring. But who knows? Hatterene can definitely pop off this matchup. Hatterene can just really punish the majority. Dual Stab is very much unresisted, and with still having Mystica Fire, can check the Rich Steel once it's weakened down. So definitely could see the Hatterene coming back. Magneton, don't really think it's going to be broad. Magneton's really not that good of a monitor for this matchup, but it's a really good Screamtail check. It's a really good Meowscarada check. For the most part, it's also a good, decent enough Blastoise pivot as well, and Registeel pivot as well. But overall, I just don't really know if it's gonna be broad. If this was Terra, I definitely think that this Magneton would have a field day because Magnet Pole trapping on the Registeel and like either Iron Defensing up or being Terra, being able to two shot it with anything else you really wanted. It was really great. But overall, I just don't really know how Keegan is going to kind of counter and this. Um, and yeah, I think. Oh, and Thunderous Therian. Thunderous! Absolutely amazing mon this matchup. Does speed tie, I believe, with the Landorus Incarnate, so that's going to be a little bit of a downside there. But I do think this is a great Thunderous matchup. Thunderous has really insane good coverage into majority of Keegan's team. But it's going to be very interesting to see how Leo runs this one. Now, Leo kind of will have a tough six to bring, and I think Keegan has kind of almost an obvious six to bring. But based off of the matchups here, I'm actually going to go with Leo here. I think Leo's team kind of matches up a little bit more better into most things that um Keegan has. So I do think Leo can just overwhelm Keegan, especially with that Terapagos. If he gets that Terapagos in and starts spamming normal moves, Keegan can't really do anything about that. And the fact that Keegan's gonna be forced to bring Pokemon that he might know have bad matchup, but he has to bring it just because of how the mons work, I think is gonna be one of the big things that Leo's gonna take advantage of. Up next, we have our next game here, which is going to be the man of the hour, Grandmaster D Ray with Goldango, Hisuian Samurai, Ogerpon Heartflame, Lola Ninetales, Haxorus, Mesprit, Tentacruel, Rabombi, Hitmontop, and Sandaconda. Don't want none if you got buns, hun. Sorry, I had to do that one time for you guys. I had to do that one time. But he is taking on the hero, the voice of the voiceless, and the man that didn't know D-Ray had the one intro, so he has to do a completely different intro every time now. We got my boy Dell, aka D Double, the Edmund Coilers. He's got Palafin, Blaziken, Archaludon, Thunderous, Shaman, Vezzadippity, Crocodile, Metalwood, and the Rotom Normal. So take a little quick span of D-Ray's team here. And then look at Dell here. I think obviously Webbs easily comes. Webbs is 100% coming. There is no removal on Dell's team. So Sash Lead Brabombi is coming no matter what and getting those Webbs up. Um, Rabombi itself actually does pretty decently well in this matchup as well. I think there's very little switch-ins to dual stab besides the Serendipity really is the only switching you have, which then you're kind of forcing that to be brought, but then it kind of gets kind of checked around a little bit. I think Heartflame looks insanely strong in this matchup. Heartflame has very little resistance. Heartflame's only counterplay is going to be the Archaludon, which that can easily be weakened down. Goldango, don't realistically think is going to come. I don't think it's that good into this matchup as it kind of doesn't check anything really and kind of gets overwhelmed by a lot of things. Pursuing Samurai maybe be brought. I can't I can't guarantee Samurai being brought in this one. Like, it's not bad. Don't get me wrong, it's not bad. But at the same time, it kind of gets overwhelmed by the funny coverage from Blaziken, excuse me, Shaman, the Rotom to an extent, and even Paladin to an extent. So I don't realistically know how well D-Ray wants to bring that in, but he definitely do that. I think a little Ninetales looks absolutely insane this matchup. And I honestly think you don't go with Veil support this week. Now, the reason why I say don't go with Veil support is that I think with Nasty Plot and then literally just Psyshock, Blizzard, and Freeze Dry, you literally can just OHKO, if not two-shot, everything on the format against Dell's team, which I think is really good. Now, if you do go with those three moves and decide, you know what, you don't want Nasty Plot, you still want Veil, then you can go Veil, but I think a Nasty Plot 3 attack set actually looks really sane in here. Haxorus, there is very little counterplay to Dragon on this team. Like, literally Dragon Dance, Earthquake, Dragon Move, and then whatever coverage DJ wants, or he wants Protect, or he wants to run something else. Like, there's not a lot that's stopping D-Ray from just clicking a Dragon Move for the most part, which I think is pretty big. So, definitely something to note there. I even could see potentially Banded Haxorus from doing a lot of work. Hitmontop, I could kind of see him on top has a little bit of a hard time dealing with things like the Rotom, the Meloetta to an extent, and also the Sensitivity a little bit. But I don't think him on top has a terrible matchup here. I think Technician him on top can definitely go into crazy in this matchup. Kind of do a lot there. Sandaconda, don't realistically think you bring Sandaconda when there's a Rotom, Shaman, and a Palafin. Don't really know if you're going to feel comfortable enough to want to counteract that build. And what else did D-Ray have? Tentacruel and Mesprit. Mesprit I could definitely see as a really good defensive check to a couple of things with Colbur. Tentacruel, though, you might be forced to bring it as a Palafin check and a Blaziken check at the same time. But I don't realistically think you could bring it, but I wouldn't be surprised if you did bring it. So, but looking at Dell's team, Blaziken plus Palafin go dummy stupid this matchup. Crick also looks really strong in this matchup as well. I think like an potential bulk up set could really go into town here. I also think things like the Archaludon could do decently well. A little bit of a struggle, but do decently well. Shaman obviously pretty decent in this matchup. Don't realistically think it comes, but would not be surprised to see it brought. Rotom can actually do really well. Ghost plus Electric really kind of hurts D-Ray in this matchup quite a lot, and can definitely provide really good support options and provide a good offensive option. Fizzidipity might be forced to be brought into this matchup, kind of like a Fizdef check that things like the Haxorus, and kind of checks a couple of Pokemon here. Like from Ogerpon to Haxorus, Fizzidipity checks all three of those, which I think is really important to note. And Fizzidipity actually, in some way, I think actually can 1v1 a Tentacruel in most situations because of the bulk that Fizzidipity does have. Do you think the Thundurus Incarnate is pretty decent this matchup? I don't know how well Dell really wants to bring it this match, but I wouldn't be surprised. It's pretty solid in this matchup. It is got taunt, so it can shut down Webb's turn one if that is the case. Blaziken, like I said though, absolutely a monster. Palafin, an absolute monster this matchup. And just overall, I just feel like there's a lot of great things here. But I do think I have to go with D-Ray this matchup. I think D-Ray can overwhelm the offense of Palafin plus Blaziken from Dell's side. And I just overall think the option of Ninetales either being a Veil support, three attackers, or Nasty Plot and just slamming into to Dell with this Ninetales with the attacks and everything. I just overall think D-Ray's team matchup matches a lot more better into Dell. So unfortunately, as much as I want to see Dell win, I gotta go with my man D-Ray on this pick. Up next, we have got a pretty interesting matchup here, ladies and gentlemen. We have got Matt in the Cosmo Whimsicott's Dr. Slacking, aka Matthew Drafts, aka just Matt. Uh, he has got Donphan, Girafarig, Terrakion, Zarude, Mudsdale, Turtonator, Cobalion, Impidimp, Basculin, and Growlithe, aka Dog, as he is going to be taking on Ant this week, and this should be a really interesting matchup because Ant and Matt have never played against each other, so I think this is going to be a really cool matchup here. And Ant's team is Sneasler, Zapdos, Necrozma, Mamoswine, Hydreigon, Empoleon, Diancie, Thwacky, Vigorep, and Cryogonal. Looking at this team right now, what is Ant gonna do against Boulder? Boulder just clicks Mighty Cleave and claims a KO or claims a 2-hit KO. That's just insane. Great Tusk also looks insanely strong in this matchup. Raging Bolt actually does relatively well in this match as well. It's just really going to be an overwhelming offensive point for Ant to deal with here. Just because, like, again, you look at Matt's team here against Ants here. He has no good counter switch into this. Even Ogerpon to an extent, he has no really good counterplay as well. Iron Crown also does insanely strong in this matchup as well. It can just really overwhelm a lot of things. Grafai can do decently well, but I don't think it's that great. Basca Legion can also, like, there's very little to its dual stab that can be switched into. And then, like, just looking back at Ant's team here, he just can't counterplay a majority of match draft. And I think it's gonna be a really hard struggle for him to deal with because I think most of Matt's team just can always either be choice banded, choice specs, choice scarfed, and just varies around everything else around it. But overall, I think just Matt's team is insanely strong here. But I am not going to count out Ant here. Ant does have Sneasel, which can overwhelm quite a bit here if it gets an unburden boost. I think Zapdos can decently check out a couple of things in the format on Matt's team, which I think is really important to know, so you might be forced to bring that. Necrozma might be a little tough to bring this matchup, but I wouldn't be surprised to see in the Necrozma though, because it does do decently well. Mamoswine is actually low key threatening. I do think it's going to be forced to be Scarf, though, in order to check a lot of things offensively and to really pressure the offensive side of things. So I think it's really important there. Hydreigon, don't realistically think you bring it, but I wouldn't be too surprised. It's decently good in this matchup. It has this decent speed control into most things as well. And I think if you run a Chople Berry set with Nasty Plot, it can kind of be able to claim at least 1 KO or 2, depending on the matchup. And Poland, if you bring it, it's easily choppable. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. It doesn't. It kind of check a couple of things on Matt's team, but like the first 2 picks, Matt's not gonna be with having Donphan and Giraffrig. It's not gonna really take both hits kind of really well, so it might be a little bit tough to bring there. The Yancey, I kind of don't see it being brought. It really gets punished by a lot of things. It's forced to either be Rindo Berry, Shuka Berry, just any berry in particular potentially, and just kind of loses the item availability he will have. Because if he gets the wrong berry on the wrong Pokemon and the wrong Pokemon connects to him there, he can't resist it, then it could be a problem there. Thwacky, don't think you bring Thwacky at all. For Rigoraph, don't realistically think you bring that, but I wouldn't be necessarily surprised to see some type of Trick Room mode from Ant, because Trick Room definitely could provide a bit of a nuisance to match draft. He only has maybe like 1 or 2 Pokemon that take advantage of Trick Room relatively well. And then there's a Cryogonal. Cryogonal is probably not coming, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did come because it can smack up quite a bit of match draft. The only thing it can't really smack up is just gonna be that Cobalion. But overall, I do think the Cryogonal can do decently well here. But I am going to pick Matt just because I think Matt's like top of the line roster just it really matches up perfectly into Ant's team, and I just think Ant's gonna have a hard time trying to deal with it. So, gonna have to go with the main man Matt for this one. And the last one we have here is going to be John versus T Row here. And now looking at John's team, he has got Latios, Annihilate, Scizor, Weavile, Comfey, Sandy Shucks, Skarmory, Overquill, and Quillfish. Where T Row has the Torrentee, the Kyurem, the Slowking, Donphan, Ursaluna, Bronzong, Sylveon, Skuntank, Mienshao, and Go-Go. Let's look at T Rose first from here. Looking into John's team, Torn T just literally claims KOs. Like Nasty Plot Torn is very much hard for John to try to counterplay and try to beat. But I think overall it can be really punishing. I think overall as well, it can just do a lot of work into the matchup and just do really well. Kyurem, a very good threatening Pokemon. I think Scarf Kyurem would probably be the main choice of bring here. But Kyurem does have a little bit of a rough time being brought, as there is things like Latios, which can be outscarfing or outspeeding potentially. Annihilate, which can just take hits and just deal them back. Scizor, which checks it in raw. Comfey, which can 1v1 it. Skarmory that 1v1s it. And so on and so forth. So could be tough. Slowking, if it comes, it pretty much is a really good defensive check to a couple of things on John's team, but it could provide the snow buff for Kyurem as well, but at the same time, I think Slowking pretty much matches badly as it can't really beat the Annihilate decently well. It loses to Scizor to an extent. Weavile checks it. Comfey beats it 1v1. Sandy Shocks can always take 1 hit and 2 KO it. Skarmory, can kind of beat. Overquill checks it in full. So I don't really know about that. Donphan, decently defensive, good check in this matchup. Don't fully know if it comes. It's definitely not a bad mon in this matchup. Ursaluna though, let's talk about that thing. Ursaluna with Slowking with Trick Room could definitely be the move here from T-Row because you look at Ursaluna's dual stab, you look at John's team. He only has one check, and that one check gets 2 KO'd by Fire Punch. That is, of course, if he is max attack, adamant guts to a max defense, max HP, impish Skarmory. Because with a Swords Dance, it actually has a chance to OHKO at +2. But by itself, it actually is a roll to 2. It is pretty much a guaranteed roll to 2 KO unless he gets absolute low roll on both. But overall, I think Ursaluna is going to be the bane of John's existence. I think Bronzong could fit in the slot slightly a bit better. I do think Bronzong's a little bit worse, though, in Slowking in this matchup, just because of Overquill, Weavile, Annihilate, and then even things like Scizor to an extent. Like, I think Bronzong kind of fits a little bit worse. Sylveon, really good mod in this matchup. I think besides dealing with Scizor, he can kind of check quite a bit here. Obviously, the Skarmory could be a little bit of an issue, but you might be forced not to be bringing Skarmory this matchup. So, don't really know about that. Skunk Tank, it's not the worst mon in this matchup. It's definitely something that can possibly come. Not a guarantee brought, though. But I don't think it really does anything. Mian Shao definitely has a very good option to just kind of punch through holes. I think maybe something like AV with things like Reckless High Jump Kick can do really well. I do think a Regenerator also fits a lot of ways as well. And then there's a Go-Go, which is definitely not coming because Go-Go kind of just does bad without Terra. With John's team, though, I think it's obviously going to be another Latios matchup. Latios can always match up really well into a majority of every team out there. And as for this Latios, I could see Soldu, I could see Specs, I could see Scarf, I could see Dragon Dance. A lot of ways you can kind of go with this one. Annihilate, another fantastic Pokemon this matchup, and punishes so many Pokemon. I do think it might be forced into Assault Vest again, but I could see like a Swadev sub, a bulk up set, as literally all you really need is just dual stab to punish most of this team and to kind of take it on. But I could see some options for something else if that is not going to be bulk up potentially or sub. Scizor, definitely think Scizor has a pretty solid matchup here. Scizor can punish a lot of things offensively. I think Bandit really looks well here. I think Swords Dance also looks really strong as well. Weavile, another fantastic Weavile matchup as always. It does get outsped by the Torn, so that's going to be a little bit of a problem there. But an SD Weavile kind of just claims KOs and just does not care, and it can just really do a lot of work in this matchup. Comfey maybe comes. I don't really expect it to, but I think something like Calm Mind would be the best bring in this matchup. I think potentially Calm Mind, Store Power, and then either Draining Kiss or Giga Drain is your one option, and then potentially having the fairy coverage of or Store Power maybe. I don't know. Really kind of depends on what kind of build John wants to go with it. Sandy Shocks. Sandy Shocks isn't terrible this matchup. I do think it's pretty decent, but I don't think he's going to be brought because of the fact of the double ground. But don't think double ground comes, but also with Kyurem there, it's a little tough to bring it as well. So don't really think he's going to do that. Skarmory, he might be forcing himself to bring just to be an Ursaluna check. If anything, he might also try to hazard stack a little bit. Overquill, big man, does fairly well in this match. I think you bring like more like a Shuckleberry set. Dual stabs, and then either you could run stuff like Taunt, which I think is really important. You can run Throat Chop to be able to shut down the Sylveon if it's broad. Just overall, kind of just a pretty okay matchup. Regular Quillfish, definitely don't think you're bringing that. I don't think it's really going to be that good. But I know John wants to bring Big Man and Little Man at the same time. But in terms of the matchup here, I'm going to give it to my man John. I think John's team just matches up really well into T-Row. T-Row does have some good stuff into John, but I just think John just has a better matchup overall going into this game with T-Row. So, but that is going to be my pick'ems, guys. Let me know in the comments below who you think won this week. And with that being said, thank you all so much for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe. And don't forget to subscribe and check out everyone down below in the description because they are the ones bringing this thrilling entertainment for you guys every single Saturday for the next few weeks. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe once again. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.